WPTV.
After much anticipation, the women and men of William Paterson basketball teams, they will be back and they will be taking the hardwood starting February 5th. And joining us to discuss that, we have Anthony, Joe, and Steven. Gentlemen, let's start with the women. They were in the playoffs last year. They had an early exit in the NJAC versus TCNJ. Anthony, we'll start with you. What are your expectations for this young women's team? They only had 2 graduating seniors last year.
Well, yeah, Samory, I actually really like where this team is right now, albeit the 2 seniors that graduated, Alicia Giordano and Kai Adams, pretty much the heart and soul of the team. So I feel like they're going to have to get over that, and that's going to be a tough hump to get over. But this team's very young, very motivated, a lot of sophomores and juniors, and I think if all holds true, they should have a really good run this year.
Yeah.
I completely agree. We are 1 year, well, a little more than 1 year removed from a really, really almost a huge upset against TCNJ. And there's only more reason to believe that this William Paterson team is going to be back and better than ever. As you said, only 2 graduated seniors. Everyone has just another year in the system. And I tell you, I take this team's depth against any other team in the NJAC.
Now, Steve, when they played TCNJ last year in the playoff game, it was very close. There's a lot of blown calls that we saw. From what we saw from the team last year, I think they're just going to build on this. What are your expectations for this team? Because I think the sky's the limit, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Last year's game against TCNJ, it was an overtime thriller, and that you saw the veteran players of the team step up. Now you have Nikira Rosa, Madison Duluth, another year in the system with Coach Monahan. And now you have Bianca Soriano, Brianna Brooks as the leaders of this team. And I think the freshmen becoming sophomores are just going to take that next step. And they should be competing for they should be a top dog in the NJAC, I feel. Depending on the season, because it is only 8 games, every single win matters. So you hope they take advantage of every game.
Now, Steve, you just alluded to it. This season is only 8 games, and we're going to keep it with you. It's going to be a lot of important factors. Obviously staying healthy is one of them with everything that's going on, but also just chemistry. Because like Anthony said, there's a lot of young players, maybe a little bit of chemistry. That was some things that happened last year. But what do you think is the most important factor for this team to succeed this season?
I think getting off to a strong start in the season. You open up your year against Montclair State, your rival. If you can come out with 2 wins against that, then you go up against Rutgers North, who has not been very good the past few seasons. So I think if you could start off with a 3-1, 4-0 record somehow, I think you're going to solidify yourself as a top team in this conference. And like you said, some more chemistry, building the team up for another year. Like Walker says, it's a very young team. So the more you grow as a team, you're better off going to be in the long term.
Joe?
Well, I agree. Chemistry is a big issue, but a lot of these games that we've seen have come down to the free throw line. That can make or break you in a lot of these games, and it has been a point of struggle for the Pioneer women's basketball team for a while from the line. I think that this is going to be the year where those shots from the charity stripe finally fall in.
Anthony?
3 names from last year: Nikira Rosa, Madison Duluth, Allison Bride. What do they all have in common? They were all freshmen. Last year's freshman class was so strong and really put so much life into this team that it propelled them to where they were. I think if the women's team can get a freshman class even somewhat similar to what they had last year, with the heart and the hustle and just the raw skill that freshman class had, I think this team can go a long way.
Yeah, the women had a very successful season last year. Now, if we switch sides and we go over to the men, they had a 5-13 record. Coach Chapman unit, they lost a lot of close games last season. So, Joe, we'll start with you. Do you expect this team to bounce back? Because they lost a few seniors, they lost a little bit of the depth. So, do you think this team bounces back?
Absolutely, I think this team bounces back, and a lot of it has to do. Look, Sean Smith is a tough loss. That has to be said. We'll talk about that in a bit, but now this team really goes as Mignon goes, and he's going to get so many touches for this team. I mean, we might see him take off in a Steph Curry like way in this season. So that's why I think that the Pioneers are in good hands.
Anthony?
Yeah, this team is hungry. You know, you look at their record last year, 5-13, and I feel like this team knows and expects better than that. And I think they're going to get a lot better than that. I think they're only going to go up from here. Like Joe said, Sean Smith, huge loss. But I feel like this team has enough to supplement that loss with Dominion, Nasir Fields, Jane Cepeda, who we're going to see a lot of this year. I feel like this team can really excel in the areas that they struggled in last year, and I really feel like they're going to come out the gate strong.
Steve, close us out.
I think this is going to be a really tough year for the guys here. Not only do you lose Sean Smith, you also lose your tallest player in your roster with Henry Voorhees, who was able to gobble up rebounds. You lose Sammy Asani, who provided a really good offensive spark and defensive spark off the bench. Dominion struggled with injuries last season. I think whoever is in the starting lineup, we know Chap likes to stick with his 7-man rotation. Those 7 guys have to play their butts off every single night, and we know that they will. But when you have such a tough conference, when you play NJCU, Montclair State, TCNJ, every win's going to matter, and they have to play near perfect if they really want to make the playoffs here.
Now, the name Sean Smith has been said a few times on this block, and with understanding, the guy, he was good in his tenure here at William Paterson. Anthony, we'll start with you. We're going to have to see whose team this is this season, and going with you, what player do you think steps up the most this season?
Let me tell you about my guy, Nasir Fields, for a second. This guy is gross under the basket. You see a picture of this guy. This guy looks like he could throw you around the entire court. He gets a ton of rebounds. He's tough. He's grimy. He's hard to get past under the basket. And when you got a guy that's finishing as much as he does, averaged 7 rebounds a game last year, can score as much under the basket as he does, can really facilitate under the basket, I really feel like you can go a long way.
I love the pick. The only issue with Nasir Fields last year, he would get in a lot of foul trouble very early as well.
I get it. Listen, when you play like that, you're going to get a lot of fouls, but if you just keep that down, you're good to go.
Steve?
I got a sleeper name here. Joe's going to appreciate this one. I'm looking for him to take over the shooting guard role, and that's Justin Lingat. I think he's a guy that's flown under the radar for the past couple of seasons. Got a couple starts last season, shot 43% from the field. This kid can provide a really good spark off of the bench, but I think he's going to be in that number 2 role this year. And it seemed that him and Mignon had really good chemistry last year. And I think with increased minutes, he's going to explode.
Joe?
Well, I'm going to stay in the backcourt. Walker touched on him earlier. Going into his sophomore year, Jaden Cepeda showed a lot, I think, as a freshman. And we're talking about a guy who averaged 14.6 assists in high school, and he's from West New York. They really pump out basketball talent. So he was playing against a lot of good competition. I'm looking at a guy who, in limited minutes, he put up some good numbers. He always hit his free throws, so that's very exciting. I'm looking forward to a big year, breakout year, you could say.
Yeah, and we wish the best of luck to both the women's and the men's team as they start their season on February 5th. But as we're on the hardwood, we're going to continue there. We're going to go from one hardwood to the other. The NBA crew will be back around to discuss everything that's happening in the world of hoops. Stick around here on WPTV.